Interestingly, if you like, I'm not here because this was my choice. You very kindly asked me to become patron of your organizations.
So Prince William has officially gone full scorched earth behind palace doors, and the reason is a confrontation nobody saw coming. It started on a standard Tuesday afternoon when Camilla's daughter walked into a crowded charity hall and launched a blistering public attack on Princess Anne. But the detail that should freeze your blood isn't the shouting match itself. It's the freelance photographer who was already in position. Somebody paid for this exact moment, and the retaliation has been utterly ruthless. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The breach at the hall, it all started at a charity showcase for rural development. It was held at the Royal Horticultural Hall. It has to be the most boring building in London. You would never expect a royal crisis to detonate here. Princess Anne was working her way down a list of dignitaries. She was doing what she had done thousands of times. She was standing by the main exhibit in a structured navy coat. She was wearing her usual brooch. She was doing exactly what she had been doing for over 50 years. No complaint, no scandal. Everything in that hall was moving exactly according to plan. The schedule was tight, and schedules always are. She is the one who turns up in the rain to open a shed for a farming charity. She never mentions it again. Then Laura Lopes walks in through a side entrance. Laura is Camilla's daughter. The first thing that doesn't add up is right there. She was not on the official guest list. She was not supposed to be in that part of the building at all. But she does not wander in. She does not look lost. She does not stop to ask anybody where she should be. She moves through the crowd with purpose. She positions herself a few feet behind the Princess Royal, and then she waits. She waits for a gap in the noise. She waits for a moment when the room is quiet enough that whatever she says will carry. Then she steps forward. She does not bow. She does not offer a greeting of any kind. This was not a friendly drop-in. This was a targeted approach. The security at the door had been checked. The guest list was locked down. Yet somehow she was standing right there. The regional director who let her in was supposed to be a neutral civil servant. He was not. He was an accomplice. But nobody knew that yet. Right then in that hall, all anybody knew was that the air had suddenly turned ice cold. The calculated ambush. According to several witnesses who were close enough to hear, Laura spoke in a loud, sharp tone when addressing Princess Anne. She expressed that the recent changes to the estate funding felt like a personal insult to her family. Take a moment to consider the significance of this situation beyond just the words spoken. A woman who was not on the guest list approached a senior member of the royal family during a state-related function and publicly aired a private family grievance. This confrontation took place in a room filled with reporters, and a camera was already focused on them. This was not a lapse in judgment or an impulsive emotional outburst. Someone deliberately orchestrated this scene to occur under these specific circumstances, ensuring it would be recorded. Laura moved closer, her voice carrying across the hall, accusing the Princess Royal of hiding behind protocol. She alleged that Anne was specifically targeting Camilla's family with the recent audit and claimed everyone knew about the secret meetings with the Prince of Wales. At the back of the room, reporters stopped feigning interest in the produce displays and began scrambling for their notebooks. This is where the suspicion of a setup becomes undeniable. A freelance photographer had his lens trained on the interaction from the very beginning, not just after the shouting started, but from the outset. The camera shutter was audible over the rain tapping against the hall's glass roof. Someone had made certain that this moment would be captured as an image. This detail is crucial. A photograph of a distressed royal woman is worth only one thing, and everyone in that family has known its significance since the summer of 1997. This was a media event, meticulously planned and executed to target the heart of the monarchy. Laura aimed to humiliate the Princess Royal, intending to demonstrate that Camilla's bloodline held the real power. However, she fundamentally misunderstood the gravity of who she was confronting. The Princess Royal's masterclass in restraint. Princess Anne's response in the next 10 seconds reveals everything about her ability to navigate the royal institution for 5 decades without any serious scandals attached to her name. She didn't turn around immediately. Instead, she adjusted her gloves and stood completely still for 3 full seconds, and the entire room fell silent. Everyone present understood that something had gone very wrong. When she eventually turned, her expression was under total control. She did not acknowledge the accusation at all. No mention of estate funding or family issues. Instead, she addressed the security team, questioning whether they had checked the guest list for the afternoon session. That was her entire response. She did not engage with Laura's remarks. Rather, she questioned Laura's right to be in that room at all. It was a swift and surgical dismissal that stung more than any argument could. Arguing would have put them on equal footing for a moment, but Anne refused to grant her that moment. Laura flushed a deep shade of red and became flustered. Anne signaled for her protection officer, who moved through the crowd and firmly asked Laura to relocate to the lobby area, stating that her presence was no longer appropriate. As Laura walked out past the dignitaries, reporters, and produce displays, the whole room watched her leave. The entire interaction took under 2 minutes. Anne exited through the main door, waved to the crowd outside, and walked to her car without glancing at the press pack. However, the real strategy became apparent during the drive back. In the back of the official state vehicle, Anne sat staring straight ahead with her hands folded over her purse. She didn't look at her phone or speak to her aide. Instead, she replayed the confrontation in her mind, analyzing the timing and the sequence of who said what and when. As someone who has spent her whole life within the framework of royal duty, she does not see protocol as a mere suggestion. To her, it is the mortar that holds the entire structure together. If the mortar is removed, the wall collapses. She asked her aide for the guest list and scanned the names, identifying 3 local journalists known to be friendly with Camilla's family. These journalists had been standing at the edge of the crowd watching with obvious interest and no surprise. In that moment, Anne realized she had walked into a trap. Someone had informed Camilla's family about the highly classified estate audit. The only remaining question was who had leaked the information. Anne called a contact in the intelligence services and requested a trace of the email traffic connected to the estate audit. She was determined to get to the bottom of it. She guards the gate and had just uncovered that someone inside the walls was handing out keys. William's controlled fury and the money trail. Prince William learned about the clash while he was on a conference call and ended it immediately, without waiting for a natural pause or concluding his point. He instructed his chief of staff to secure the raw footage from the photographer, emphasizing that he wanted to see it for himself. He did not request a summary or briefing note. He wanted to witness exactly what was said and how far the disrespect had gone. The atmosphere in his office was described as cold. He watched the footage in silence on a large screen, observing Laura's stance and the crowd's reactions. Somewhere within those 2 minutes of tape, he concluded that his patience had run out. He wasn't looking to smooth things over. He was searching for evidence of misconduct. He called the king without asking for permission or advice, simply informing his father that he would be taking control of the disciplinary process. He briefed the king on the situation, stating that he would not tolerate such behavior within the household. The king listened without interruption and granted his son the authority to take necessary actions. William ordered a thorough investigation into the regional director who had allowed Laura into the event. The security team reported back within hours, revealing that the director hadn't just done a favor. He had facilitated the entire incident by providing an access code to a freelancer from a local radio station. The investigation continued and uncovered that the radio station had paid £10,000 for exclusive footage of a royal family member being publicly shouted at. This money was funneled through a shell company. Delving deeper into the director's financial records, investigators found a series of payments totaling £100,000 funneled into his accounts. William was informed of this discovery that same evening, realizing the gravity of the situation. This was no mere emotional outburst from a woman defending her mother. Someone had been paid £100,000 to capture that moment on camera. It amounted to a calculated attack on the royal family's reputation. Tracing the source of the payments, William found that the funds originated from an international portfolio linked to associates of Camilla's family. Their actions weren't driven by anger over budget issues. They were fueled by financial desperation. Desperate people resort to contracts. As he stood at his window, looking out at the city lights, he thought about his children. A photographer with a paid position and a clear view of a royal woman was not just an abstract issue for his family. William understood the value of a lens aimed at a female family member from the age of 15. When he sat in that room and heard a camera shutter click amid the rain, it felt like something much older, a threat to his family's survival. The ruthless purge of the household. William entered the briefing room at 6:05 p.m. He did not take off his coat as he walked to the center of the table and placed his phone on the polished surface. 5 senior aides sat in front of him. He pointed at the screen on the wall and played the raw footage from the horticultural show. The sharp click of the shutter echoed through the tape as he allowed the entire interaction to unfold without saying a word. He watched his aunt standing there, adjusting her gloves, and saw Laura step forward. When the clip ended, he switched off the projector with a decisive click and asked why a woman barred from official engagement lists had been allowed into that hall. The director of security opened his mouth to explain, but William cut him off. He was not interested in an explanation. He wanted names. Over the previous 2 months, William had quietly worked to remove staff loyal to Camilla's family from the household. Now he accelerated his timeline to 0. He reached for a secure folder on the table labeled Internal Influences. Inside, he found the link. The pressure to let Laura in had come from a mid-level manager married to a personal assistant in Camilla's household. William closed the folder and ordered the director of security to remove that manager from the building immediately. He also ordered the personal assistant suspended and declared Camilla's household a restricted zone. No one was permitted to move between those offices and the rest of the palace without his written approval. Within 20 minutes, security officers escorted the manager out of the building, passing colleagues along the way. The message sent through every office in the palace was clear. Prince William was no longer just the polite heir in the corridor. He was now the administrator in charge, systematically going through the house room by room. Next, he focused on the finances. His team reported calls between Camilla's private phone and a legal firm in the city. William interpreted this as preparation for a legal fight and an attempt to shield assets. He ordered a review of every title for secondary liens, wanting to know if they had quietly borrowed money against properties that weren't theirs. He was filled with controlled fury, worse than shouting. He was dismantling their entire private financial infrastructure. William called a press conference inviting not the usual royal correspondents, but the lead investigative reporters from financial newspapers, those who scrutinized documents. Taking the stage without a teleprompter, William laid out the timeline, illustrating the financial links running through shell companies. He stated that the institution was under attack by a coordinated effort to destabilize it for private gain. He never named a single family member. He didn't have to. William announced that a criminal investigation had been opened and then walked off without taking questions. The narrative shifted completely. It was no longer a family dispute, but a criminal conspiracy. The focus turned to the money, and any sympathy for Laura Lopes evaporated within a single news cycle. The king's final signature and Camilla's silence. On the following Monday morning, light poured through the tall windows of the Privy Council chamber, casting warm golden rays that illuminated the cold, hard surface of the stone floor. The expansive room, normally bustling with activity, stood quiet and empty, save for 2 figures positioned at either end of a lengthy, intricately carved wooden table. At one end stood Prince William, his expression a mixture of determination and solemnity. In his hands he held a formal decree, its weight palpable. The document was crafted from thick, cream-colored paper, the ink still gleaming as if freshly inscribed. The royal seal had been pressed into the wax with precision, a mark of finality and authority. With a deliberate motion, he slid the document across the polished surface of the table, watching it glide toward his father, King Charles III. The king, seated at the opposite end, furrowed his brow as he unfurled the decree. His gaze fell on the contents, unequivocal in intent. The official status of Camilla's family members had been irrevocably revoked, effective immediately. The decree's ramifications were profound. It stipulated that no further invitations would be extended to Camilla's relatives for state functions, effectively severing ties with the royal household. Additionally, any funding previously allocated from the estate accounts was to be frozen, and no professional association of any kind would be permitted moving forward. The air in the chamber felt heavy, charged with the weight of the decisions being made, as the consequences of this action echoed through the centuries-old walls of authority. This was not merely a request. It bore the weight of an instruction crucial for the survival of the kingdom and its institutions. The king, a man accustomed to the weight of authority and the burden of duty, scrutinized the decree for several long moments. His finger traced the edges of the royal seal, the intricate design symbolizing centuries of heritage and power. As he prepared to sign his name, his gaze remained fixed on the parchment, refusing to meet the eyes of his advisors gathered nearby. In that moment, he understood the enormity of what he was about to finalize, an end to years of expending effort to safeguard what he had been led to believe was a supportive family. Today, this document unveiled the truth. What he once deemed a sanctuary now revealed itself as a threat to his reign and the realm's stability. With a resolute stroke of his pen, the king's signature sealed the decree, a decision heavy with implications. Almost immediately, a messenger was dispatched to Camilla's sprawling country estate, a distant refuge that once symbolized peace but now echoed with uncertainty. The messenger clutched a second copy of the decree, an ominous weight that added to the tension already enveloping the palace. Meanwhile, within the elegant yet chaotic confines of that very estate, Laura Lopes sat alone in the living room, surrounded by a scattering of half-packed boxes that marked her family's impending upheaval. She scrolled through a barrage of vitriolic comments beneath the news reports dominating her screen, her heart sinking with each scathing insult and each questioning remark that attacked her right to voice her thoughts. It was supposed to be a day of advocacy, a day to defend her mother's honor. Still, her words had unwittingly ignited an institutional disaster that she was wholly unprepared for. The implications of her situation deepened as she absorbed the reality that their personal bank accounts were now under the scrutiny of the palace's financial oversight. Their protection, a safety net for decades, was abruptly withdrawn. For the first time in over 20 years, they found themselves completely vulnerable and isolated. The protective shield that had once surrounded them was now irrevocably shattered, leaving them exposed to the unforgiving forces of scrutiny and judgment. As the afternoon wore on, an unsettling silence fell over the estate, one that felt heavy and foreboding. The palace staff, having executed their duties with precision, awaited Camilla's response, an appeal, a passionate argument, or perhaps the involvement of a lawyer. Anything to counter this unforeseen declaration. Time trickled by slowly, and despite the urgency of their situation, hours passed with no sign of life from Camilla. The phone sitting in the king's office remained irrefutably silent, each unanswered ring amplifying the looming sense of dread that now hung over the entire institution. As twilight settled over the sprawling grounds of the palace, a lone courier emerged from the distant country estate, solemn and clutching an empty envelope that felt heavy with unspoken words. Inside that solitary envelope lay a decree signed by Camilla, but her actions spoke volumes more than any signature ever could. She had chosen not to voice her thoughts, not to call for a meeting, and with a steely resolve, silently accepted the terms of her enforced isolation. Within the opulent walls of the palace, a palpable tension hung in the air as everyone understood that this was far from a capitulation. Camilla had meticulously cleared out the last remnants of her personal belongings from the grand residence, a signal that her retreat was both physical and profound. Yet even from her distance, the chess game of power was far from over. Somewhere in the shadowy corners of a private house, she was likely deep in contemplation, calculating every aspect of her remaining influence and carefully strategizing her next move. William had decisively severed the threads of internal influence that had long persisted within the royal framework, marking a seismic shift in the dynamics of power. For him, the institution took precedence over the bonds of marriage, a choice that solidified his position and redefined the monarchy's direction. On that night, the crown stood alone and resolute, burdened by the weight of historical expectations and modern realities. Meanwhile, the stillness emanating from the country estate was deafening, echoing across Britain, a haunting reminder that beneath the surface of royal life, profound struggles and silent wars were still being fought. If this intricate examination of the ongoing power struggles within the royal family sheds light on the unseen realities lurking behind the gilded doors of the palace, don't forget to follow for more in-depth analyses and revelations.